Hi, I'm Scott Martin from Bonsai Matsu, and this is the Bonsai Stuff podcast. In this episode of the podcast, I'm going to have a chat about what my plans are for early spring, what I'm getting ready for. There's definitely a change of season in the air. The grass is growing a lot longer, a lot quicker, a lot thicker than what it was. The weeds are popping up everywhere, and the overnight temperatures feel like they're on the improve, not quite as cold. So it's time to actually do some planning for what I'm going to enact in when spring gets here and get ready for it. As always, I like to be prepared for things and plan and make sure that I don't get caught by surprise. So I'll run through all that with you. And the other section of the podcast that I want to talk about is about the artistic side of bonsai and whether bonsai, how we display and present and grow our bonsai, whether it needs to change. Talking about the traditional to the cutting edge display that seems to be popping up a lot around the world, and I just want to give my 2 cents on it. So it should be an interesting podcast in many facets. I hope anyway. I know I'm looking forward to having a yak about it. So stick around and we'll see where it goes. Sorry for the interruption. I really hope you're enjoying the podcast as much as I'm enjoying making it. Makes the bonsai world feel a little bit smaller and a lot more cozy. Anyway, I'd love for you to become a supporter of the podcast by subscribing for as little as $3 a month. This support will go directly towards the cost of producing this podcast, and it's entirely optional. The link to become a supporter is in the episode notes for each edition. Now that's over, let's get into the podcast. So bonsai, in my eyes and my 2 cents on my podcast, which you're listening to, is that we are invariably an artistic art form. We're an art form. We're a form of displaying something for people to observe and appreciate or make comment on. And the way that we do that, it's not just like a tomato growing in a pot. It's a tree. It's a form, and we apply techniques to it to present it and have it grow a certain fashion to look a certain way. So bonsai definitely to me is an art. And the question I want to pose through the podcast is, does this form of bonsai display or art that we have, does it need to change? You look around the world and you jump on the internet, anywhere, any of the social media, and you'll see the way that the bonsai are being displayed through their potting forms, through their stands, through how they're grown. It's evolving, it's changing, and I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. I just think that there's also the traditional form of the art that can, is that becoming maybe a bit too boring for the general populace, or for people listening to this podcast? Is it something that you look at and go, yeah, it's nice, but it's just, same thing over and over and over. So, I really want to change this. I want to display it so it looks different. And the pot makers around the world are doing a great job coming up with all these new forms of pot, and I think that it's something that you need to consider in your own mind, and you don't necessarily need to make sure that all of your trees are displayed a certain way, whether it's the traditional or the modern display. But it's something that you're going to need to take into account when you look at sort of all forms of art over time. Think about something like paint on canvas, right? You go through an art gallery, especially one of the big ones around the world, and you look at the way that the same medium is approached by so many different people, that it's really the same. I'm being pretty basic with it, so please excuse the ignorant approach, but it's paint on canvas, right? And it's how that paint is applied to the canvas from the eye of the artist and the techniques that they use that make it so very, very different. And when you walk through those galleries, you can see, and these are paintings that have been around for a long time or a short period of time, doesn't really make a difference, but you can certainly appreciate every single form that medium is used, right? So you don't necessarily look at one. You'll have your preferences. You'll look at them and go, yeah, I do like this artist because I like the way that, forget the artist, if I like the way that the basic form of paint is on the canvas for this one and how it represents, that resonates with me. You go to another one and go, it's probably not for me, but you can still appreciate it, right? And that's the beauty of that art and that art form. And it's what is new, maybe controversial at the time, and maybe something which is too cutting edge for the general population to appreciate and look at it and go, wow, that's too much. That's gone too far. That's really broken the boundaries of what I deem to be acceptable for that form of the art. And that's cool. But over time, you'll find that what was originally controversial suddenly becomes accepted because it takes time for people to catch up to see that it's become accepted, and therefore they can accept that form of the art as well. And that's the same for all of us. And I know that I definitely feel that way. Being hand on heart, I feel that way when I look at some of the displays of bonsai. You think, oh, that's too far. Does it really still classify in my mind as bonsai when you look at it like that? But then over time you see it over and over and over, and you sort of go, yep, okay, yeah, no, I'm a slow uptake on this thing. Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. I actually can see the value in that, and I accept it. Doesn't mean that I have to practice the art form to comply with whatever it is that I'm coming across, but it definitely means that I can start to accept it. And that's what I suppose I really want this podcast to be about is that open-mindedness that we as human beings, as bonsai lovers, as tree lovers, to remain open to these ideas and not to crush them or not to turn our back on them, and because one day what you've turned your back on, you more than likely will put your hands out and embrace, because over time you'll see it over and over and over, and you'll suddenly accept it, and then you'll go, yeah, hey, I want that part of my collection. So these people or these artists, because they are artists, on the quick uptake of these concepts and designs doesn't necessarily need to be sort of shunned initially. Maybe you need to just stay open-minded about stuff and have a look and go, yeah, well, sure, it's not for me now, maybe in the future, but can I accept it? Yeah, I sure can. The issue that we have to deal with, as I've talked about many times on the podcast, is we're dealing with a living thing, right? So when we take into account all these different artistic forms, the first and only priority that you should have absolutely every time is for your bonsai, is for the tree. So if you want to have it in an upside down pot hanging from the rafters and growing in an inverted fashion, then no problems. Absolutely no problems. Artistically, yeah, I'm sure you could do it. I'm sure you could work out a way to do it. But, the tree still needs to be able to grow. Its roots still need to be able to grow. It still needs to be able to get moisture, and it still needs to continue thriving and capturing the sun's energy and photosynthesizing. So there's some pretty basic tick boxes that need to be filled before you can go down the path of that fancy and footloose design concept that you have in your mind. You have to sort of go, okay, one, will the tree survive this process, not just for the next month when I'm doing a display or presenting it to the world, but will it survive like this for years, for the rest of its life? Will this tree continue to grow? And if you've got doubts, then you have to change your plans. You can't keep pushing boundaries at the expense of a living being. That's just not fair. That's not what this is about. You know, we're not someone who takes a ball of clay and designs something fancy and throws it in the kiln, and if it comes out broken, we go, oh, scrap heap, let's start that again, because, you know, we're dealing with something that's alive, and it's a very different medium to almost every other single form of art around the world, and as practitioners, we've got a responsibility first and foremost to that living subject. And that should be, for my 2 cents, that should be your only concern at the start. Only concern before you take that first step into the great unknown is, you know, will this benefit the tree? Will the tree not only survive this, but will it adapt and will it thrive in this environment that I'm going to force upon it? I think that sometimes we see the initial steps for a lot of this artistic work, but we don't see the long-term repercussions. So as a viewing population, I'd encourage you before you take these steps to say, well, I saw such and such had done this, so I'm going to do it. You know, well, have you seen the bonsai since? You know, maybe it was not the best thing for it. Maybe it had to get taken out of whatever form it had taken and, you know, either get put in the green bin because it's dead or go back into a grow pot or have its situation change. Maybe it was just a short-term display that it was used for in that form. So just be really mindful that, you know, often should go unsaid. What you see on the internet may not always be the entire truth, but you just need to keep first and foremost the concept or the idea, the notion that your bonsai, your tree has to be the winner out of this, not you. So it brings me to the traditional approach. Now, I am a traditionalist. No problems at all. No problems at all. It used to be something a long, long time ago that I would think, is it the right thing, you know, to be a traditionalist? Is it, you know, am I just repeating the past? Am I just doing what everyone else has done? Am I just being boring with what I'm doing? But, you know, I think as people, you think about how you grow and evolve as a person throughout your life. You sort of look for the acceptance of others at some points in your life, and then suddenly get to the point and go, you know what, I really don't care. I'm happy with who I am. I'm me. This is it. The world either accepts me for who I am, and, you know, your friends come to the top because they know who you are and they love you for who you are, and you suddenly get to that point in your life where you go, well, you know what, I am happy. You know, if I'm not everyone's cup of tea, I don't have to be everyone's cup of tea. Now, I'm not seeking acceptance and approval. I just want to be me. I just want to be who I am. This is it. You know, there's no mask here. It's just what you see is what you get. And I live my life very much like that. And my friends and people that I like and spend time with of that ilk as well, because they're, you know, not everyone has to be perfect. I've got flaws. Everyone's got flaws, and I don't expect perfection from anyone, but I just want honesty, you know. And I feel that the traditional approach for me and the way that I portray my trees and the way I present them, I feel like it's me being completely honest about what I like and what I enjoy and what I love to design and what I love to see. You know, there are things that I do that, you know, maybe push it a little bit further and change things, but at heart, I am a traditionalist. You know, I'm not embarrassed about that. I'm not shying away from that fact. You know, there are artists around the world that like to get portrayed as cutting edge, and they want to be seen as, you know, people that are pushing boundaries and whatever. Great, that's awesome. I love it. I really do, because the world's a big place, and art. The concept of bonsai as art is endless, absolutely endless. There is not one right form. There is not one form that you should look at and go, well, I've got to comply with that. What I comply with, I don't comply with anything, but what I enjoy, what I like, I set out to design, and what makes me sort of punch the air when I've done it and high five myself and give myself a pat on the back and go, bloody good job, mate, is the approach or the design that I like. And, you know, because I know that it's something that makes me sit down with a cup of tea and look at it and go, bloody, that's nice. I really enjoy that. It doesn't have to be for anyone else. I've said it before. Bonsai is so personal. I love it because we do all this stuff for ourselves. Other people get benefit from it. That's awesome. Fantastic. That's bloody brilliant because the world needs bonsai. The world needs to see what we do with our trees, and sharing the love of green space and trees in general. There's nothing wrong with that. So when it comes to your design, if it's if that simple golden rule can be met and achieved, is this of benefit to the tree? Is this going to help the bonsai become the best it possibly can be? Then take that step. Do it. Absolutely do it. There's I could name a bloody 100 and 200 talented bonsai artists around the world and locally in Australia, and that do an awesome job with how they do it. It doesn't always have to be my cup of tea or something that I pursue, but I don't expect them to pursue what I do either. I know as an individual, if it rocks your boat, do it. If it doesn't, don't. And as someone who's involved with people in workshops and face to face, and when they're at their most vulnerable, when they come in and they're in the workshop, and I walk up to them with scissors in hand and branch cutters, and they've got a piece of material in front of them, and got that glint in their eye that they're bloody so excited to actually start something they've been thinking about. It's like, okay, what are you thinking? First thing I ask, what do you want to do? Where do you see this? What's your plan? And then, it unravels. That ball of string comes undone and starts to the pieces of the puzzle start to lay themselves out, and the person says, I want to do this, I want to do that, I've got this idea, I want to do this, I want to bend this, I want to cut that, I want to shape this, I want to tilt this, I want to whatever. And it's like, and I've got this idea for the pot, and my job is to facilitate that. But I encourage it. I strongly encourage it. Someone that comes into my workshop that's got a different approach to what I do, well, I love it. I never think, hey, you must fall in line with me. This is how it must be done. It's like, that's rubbish, just because it's, it's not how I'd see what's going on. It doesn't change the fact that I don't appreciate it, or I don't love getting involved or designing or facilitating that evolution for that person, as well as that piece of material to become an amazing bonsai. And I think that when I do get involved at that initial stage, the first thing I think about in the back of my head is, will the tree thrive? Not just will it survive it, but will this tree thrive? By doing all this stuff, horticulturally, what's the impact? If that's cut off and that's bent to here, and then this happens and that happens, what's the consequence? What's the future vision of this tree going to look like? And that's what I try and do, is I put on my hat thinking, okay, let's look 5 years down the track. All right, so if that's bent here and that's put there and that's shuffled there, okay, so do you see how this is going to get shaded, and therefore that will die? Even though it's a beautiful, healthy-looking branch at the moment, by doing that, you're going to ultimately kill it, or it's going to get weaker and weaker over time. And I'd never try and be a party pooper. I always try and think, well, okay, if we can't do that, then what can we do? Let's think about the constraints that we've got, still keep your basic vision in line, but let's consider doing something else so we can both win, so you can both come out of this as winners. You get to put your artistic flair on something and create something that you love, that that's your cup of tea tree. That's the one that you want to sit down and have a cuppa in front of every single day and look at and go, bloody good job, mate, well done. And I love it. I love it that driver is there for people. But I always try and keep it realistic to say, well, long term, this is what's going to happen, and it's not a negative. It's just like it's a little speed bump that we need to move. So anyway, the last part of this section of the podcast I want to talk about is a little bit open ended, I suppose, and it's more of a posing of a question to you, to everyone listening to the podcast, and to look at your own trees. And when you jump online, you're flicking through social medias and you see something and you go, yep, that's a keeper, put that in the memory bank, I like that design, or nah, that's not for me, that's no good. Just keep in mind that, as I said at the sort of start, what was initially controversial soon, and soon I'm talking can be 5, 10, 15 years, can be a month, can be a week, can be a day, soon becomes accepted and practiced. So rather than saying it's something that you'd never do or that you'd never consider, just put it on the back burner and say, I can see it, I can appreciate it. Yep, no worries at all. Positivity, as always, with what we do with bonsai, it's never negative. We always should be positive with what we do, but just put in the background as a possibility. Not something that you'd have to go out and race out and practice. And if you see it on display somewhere, like at the bonsai shows around the place, don't step up and get your milk crate out and start saying why you don't like it and why it's no good. Maybe just give it some extra consideration, have a look at it, and over time, what was controversial will soon enough become accepted and will become the norm. That's just the way the world works. So don't shut your mind to it. But the question I want to pose is, with bonsai, where is the art? And that's something that's very personal for all of us. For me, the art is every little minuscule part of what we do. It's the pot that we choose. It's how we display that pot. It's the front of the pot that we choose. It's the nabari of the tree. It's the position of the tree in the pot. It's how high or how low we have that tree. It's the medium that goes on top of the soil when we display. Is it stones? Is it moss? Is it just a nice even root spread that we really work with? Is it the accent that we position with the tree to offset, to give an emotional feeling of the time of the year? Is it a scroll? Is it, it's the trunk. It's the position of the trunk that we've chosen to be the front of the tree. Is it that first piece of bark that comes up? Is it a hollow? Is it a scar? Is it, the first branch? It's everything, honestly. And I challenge you to look at each of your trees with, some people don't believe that bonsai is art. Fair enough. They think it's purely a horticultural practice that we do, but I don't believe that. I think it is art, and not all of us have to be brilliant artists. You don't have to call yourself an artist, but just appreciate that what you're doing is you're creating something that is a form of art, and it deserves everything that you've got to be put into it, and what is cutting edge, is just boundaries being pushed. It's just thoughts being provoked. It's exciting. It's great. Like I said, I'm a hand on heart traditionalist, but I love it. I think seeing different things, and creating controversy and creating thought and involvement and evoking feelings, whatever it is, that's what we're here to do. I love it. I've got trees on display at this local show, and I get a few private messages come through just saying how they love it. I love my tree, and it's so much better in person. And what I've seen online, to this, it's it was a repeated thing that came through to me. And I tell you what, last night I was sitting down having a beer, reading these messages, and it just made me smile, thinking, I never do things for the benefit of other people, but when it makes other people happy, or makes them feel something, if they don't like it, and I'd cut that branch off. Yeah, so would I. But having that branch there made you look at it for an extra 30 seconds. Job done as far as I'm concerned. You got involved with that bonsai for whatever reason because of some form of it. So yeah, no, look, I think definitely that the art evolves continually throughout time. Every single form of it does. Bonsai is absolutely no different. We're all constrained by limiting factors in what we can and can't do, and I just beg you that that is number one priority when it comes to your practicing and evolution of your artistic side. As we head towards the middle of August, last month, where I'm based in downtown Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, we sort of rounding out and finishing off the winter period, which is why there's a bit of a frenzied activity now to make sure that I haven't missed anything when it comes to repotting, because for me, especially for my deciduous and my pines, my natives have got a little bit longer to do, a few months down the track. That's not a problem, but it's for the pines and deciduous. They're sort of, the window's closing for me, so I need to make sure that anything that I haven't repotted that needs to be done is put into the queue to get done. So the workshop's full at the moment of trees which are harnessed and set up yesterday. Soil was mixed. I've got black dirt up my nose like you wouldn't believe from mixing soil yesterday. But it's all rolling because spring's on the way. There's definitely an increase in the temperatures. There's not that chill. I was talking to someone yesterday who's in regional Victoria, and they're still having frost. So it's obviously, this is different based on your exact location, obviously. So for me, spring's just around the corner. So I've got to hightail it and really put in some big time to turn out what I need to get done. And there's still a lot for me to do with customers and visits and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, what I'm on the case for now is to start thinking about the next steps that I need to take with regard to spring. I want to get ready and do some early spring planning. Now, with my deciduous, I don't prune over the winter period. I wait until there's a growing period for the trees, and that's spring and autumn, and that's part of the reason why repotting for me is done late in the dormancy period. So any cuts that I make on the roots get healed nice and quickly because the tree's waking, getting ready to go, and that's part of that waiting for bud swell and whatever. That's the signal that things are really starting to happen, and it's safe to repot because the tree will release the stored resources, heal the wounds that you've made, and move on. So it also means that I can do a pre-spring prune of my deciduous. So if you look through your collection, especially as I repot, store them in the workshop, shelter them, slowly move them in and out to try and get them acclimatised to some warmer weather, protect them from the overnight cold, and then they start to take off. And I tell you, there's nothing more exciting than walking around the yard, seeing my trees start to wake from their dormancy period, which is happening now. It's great. It's lovely. That fresh round of growth, that living, it's really nice. So I go around handed with my scissors, and I start looking for the thick and the long, and start cutting off stuff like that. But I'm pretty brutal about it. I don't sort of hold back when it comes to that sort of initial early spring prune. So that's definitely something that I'm working on now. Also, pests are really starting to fire up at the moment. So just keep an eye on it. A lot of stock that I'm starting to see is getting a few little pests here and there. And with your black pines or any of your pines, look down at the new spring bud that's starting to swell or starting to move, or should be getting close to start to move anyway. And look for like a white substance around it, like fluffy. It's pine adelgids, and they'll need a spray. They generally pop their ugly heads up about this time of year, and you start to see them. So it's best to get on top of all that stuff, however you choose to. But it definitely means that you need to do something. So just keep an eye. Look out for scale as well. I've got a few trees that have popped early and have got lots of nice new growth on them, and I've noticed a few aphids hanging around the yard as well. So it's something. We've still got rain here, so you've got to be careful with your spraying window that you don't sort of just defeat the purpose of what you're doing by spraying and having it washed off straight away. And however you choose to manage your pests, up to you. But it's something that must be first and foremost. The other thing is watering. I feel like I talk about watering every single podcast, but it's so important to what you do, and you want to make sure that you've got it right. Different trees in your yard are waking up at different times. Some you can't just treat them all exactly the same. Yesterday we had some rain here, some wet weather, and there were still trees that I had to water. Definitely some that I didn't, because they're staying wet. They're still dormant. They're still asleep. You can hear them still snoozing away. But the other ones that are starting to wake up, they're starting to push. You just can't make sure you get that fluid up to them. And I find that the late part of winter, early part of spring is really, really, really difficult to get right. Once we get growing and everything's pumping lush green growth, then it's easy. But when it's the initial start, it's really tough to get it right, because that working out which ones need it and which ones don't. Oh God, it's hard. I err on the side of caution, as always, to make sure that if in doubt, give it some water. Just make sure that you're doing the right thing. You don't want these things drying out and those new delicate roots starting to get damaged. So watering is one of the primary things I'm focusing on as well. The other is fertilising. Yeah, it's that time again. So I'm making sure that I've got the stock that I need. Maybe not this next week, but the one after. Then I'll be starting to fill up fertiliser bags, much to the disgust of my family because of the smell. But it's definitely something that needs to be done. So make sure you're ready for it. Don't get caught out, and don't, if you're prepared, if you're ready to go, you'll do these things. If you're not, then it might be something you maybe miss, and you'll miss being able to sort of get the most out of your plans and out of your bonsai at this time of the year. The other is just be really, really mindful of rapid changes in temperature. Even though, as I was saying, I'm finding where I'm based, there is a feeling of things improving and getting warmer and not quite as chilly in the air. Just be prepared. Don't get overly comfortable with it. That you may need to offer some protection to those fresh little buds that are just starting to move if you do get a rapid drop in temperature and it gets very cold. A lot of people listen all around Australia and all around the world to the podcast, so just be really mindful that you may still need to protect your trees. And while we're talking about that too, the other thing that is on my agenda at the moment is summer protection. And now's a great time. I talk about getting your watering system ready for summer in the middle of winter when things are reasonably quiet. The same applies to your summer protections. If you've got time, you've finished your repotting, or you don't have a lot on the go at the moment, and there's not growth to be out there pruning away, and you've done your check for pests, and I'm on the bandwagon for fertiliser, no problems. Start thinking about your summer protection. If you had issues last year, or if you have issues every year, or if it's something that you want to do to be better prepared for what's going to happen in the warmer months, then now's the time. If you want to put up shade cloth that's removable, or if you want to just think about it, just think about what are you going to do when we get that run of really hot weather. How are you going to protect your bonsai? And no, without a doubt, we're getting more extremes in the climate, and it's something that I think that we need to start preparing for. We can't do the old ostrich thing and shove your head in the sand. You need to accept that we're going to have hotter periods, and it's going to be more intense, which for me, my biggest fear is not only getting, high temperatures, high 30s, low 40s, or even mid 40s, which is what they're predicting. It's the combination of that with strong winds. So if I've got high temperature from above, then sure, I can put shade cloth up, and that will protect the downward trajectory of the sun. But if there's strong wind and it's coming in from the side, then how do I stop that from damaging my trees or drying them out to a crisp? How am I going to plan for that? So sort of things that I've done are to allow for misters. I think that they're great for cooling the overall environment. Side shade cloth as well on structures to sort of come in and sort of give not only the top but the side protection as well, which is only used in the extreme side of things, but it's definitely something that I'm allowing for. So just start thinking about summer protections and use the internet. Have a look at what's been done elsewhere, around the world. How do other bonsai, or even bonsai nurseries, how do they shelter? When you walk around and have a look at their setups, what do they do? What's their plan? And then speak to somebody. Hey, what do you do? When it's stinking hot, what do you do? And you might hear things like, they just run their sprinkler system far more frequently, a lot for shorter periods, just to cool the environment down. They may have shade cloth that, they put up, at certain times of the year and say, well, that's it from, November through until February. I have shade cloth up because I don't have time to put it up and take it down. But then there's other places around the world that have got great systems of, retractable shade cloth that come up and down, and it doesn't need to be $1 million. It just needs to be something. So that's definitely something that you need to be, or I'd suggest that you'd be on top of now. And don't leave it too late, because it's as with everything, being prepared. It's the Boy Scout way. It's the only way to go. And the other thing that I'm looking at now definitely is looking at my development plans for my trees. I've had the fortunate time of being able to look at a lot of trees up close and personal when I repot, so I can look at what I've done, look at what's happened, and look at what I want to happen as well. You only get one chance to harness the initial spring growth, and that's why when you put your trees and you repot them, tie them in firmly. Last thing you want is for a tree that you've repotted start to grow and then suddenly gets knocked over or blown out of its pot or whatever, and all those roots are damaged and it's got to get set back, because there goes another year. Honestly, you might not feel like it, but it will be. You've got one chance. This spring burst that we initially get, you can. It's like a buck and bronco. You can strap a saddle on, jump on, and hang on for the ride, or you can fall off and the horse takes off and you miss the boat. It's really up to you guys now as to what happens with it. And that's why I like being prepared for things like fertilising, because in my mind I'm thinking, if trees that I'm developing, if I can really push them and give them everything that they need, the perfect environment, watering's right, positioning's right, I'm giving them food, then that spring burst that I really want to grab onto does exactly what I want it to do. It takes the tree, it takes my development plans exactly where I want them to go. Whereas if I miss fertilising, or I miss watering, or the tree's not in the best condition it possibly should be, spring comes and goes, things slows down, summer gets here before you know it, and suddenly it's like, oh, there goes another year. I'm back. I'm still in the same boat. My great plans for this bonsai haven't evolved. So I just think that you can go through now, as I was saying earlier, you can sort of start pruning things now that are too long, that are too strong, that are too thick, that are going to be removed at some point in the future anyway. Get rid of them now. So when spring gets here, that those trees' resources are pinpoint focused on exactly the buds that you want to grow. If you've got a branch that's got 3 or 4 sets of buds on it, but you're going to cut back to the first one at some point anyway, cut it now. Don't let all 3 sets of buds grow and then suddenly cut it off somewhere down the track when you go, oh, you know what, that is too long, because you've just wasted the chance to get those 2 buds growing to the best of their ability, because you've had the other resources pushed further down the branch. It's going to get removed anyway. So that is my focus at the moment. Even though I'm still tearing trees out of pots, I'm still smashing roots. I'm not smashing roots. I'm just saying that. But I'm still working root balls, and I'm making sure that I get these things into new pots and sphagnum moss and watered and sheltered and whatever. I'm definitely somewhere into the future in my mind, thinking about what I need to do and how I'm going to get there, because it's all about a path, right? It's all about the journey. It's all about your plans and where you want this to go. And this is one of those times where you need to really bring the plan to life. Right, so that's it. We're done for another podcast. Thanks for hanging around. I hope you found it enjoyable, and I just want to sort of tap off the talking about bonsai as art, and don't take anything that I've said to mean that you have to change who you are or what you are or what you appreciate, because beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and that's really what I want. The idea with the concept with this podcast was more to open up the thought process, to broaden your horizon, not to make you change what you're doing, but just to make you see things possibly a different way, and to appreciate things a different way. And what might not be your fancy at the moment doesn't mean it won't be in the future, and that's nothing to worry about. It's nothing to panic about, and it definitely doesn't mean you have to change anything that you're doing. It just means to think about things differently and stay positive. That's all it is. It's just look at things and go, wow, I can appreciate how the artist or the person behind that piece of art, created it, and think about things, from the horticultural side of things, the constraints that we've got to deal with, and just keep those horizons broad, and get ready for spring. It's coming. It's definitely coming. I just want to also say thank you to the subscribers to the podcast. It means the world to me. Honestly, it's so nice, and I love and appreciate the support. It's great to know that this podcast is appreciated, because, like I said, I love it. I love the fact that I get to have a chat with you all, and sort of push things and encourage and keep the bonsai fire burning, because it's great. The love of small trees for all of us is a great thing. So yep, please stay in touch and reach out if you need to. The socials is possibly the easiest way to get hold of me these days, thanks to lots of spamming and junk mailing and all that sort of stuff. So reach out if I can help in any way, and as always, happy bonsai.